Tenants beware, your rent could be on the rise. A recent survey by independent economist Tony Alexander found that 74% of landlords plan to raise their rents in the next 6 months, and most are planning to increase by 5%. Property Apprentice owner and financial advisor Debbie Roberts is with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you. So, Tony Alexander knows what he's talking about, and the survey is pretty comprehensive, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's just testament to the fact that inflation's affecting everybody, landlords as well. You know, tenants absolutely, but landlords too. And with increasing interest rates, it's massively increased the cost to any landlord who's got a mortgage, and then we've got the tax changes which have hammered landlords as well. So, we're now in a period where landlords can only increase rents once a year, which I think's fine. It just means potentially one big increase instead of two smaller ones with that change. But it is something that is affecting everyone. So I wanted to point out a couple of things. First of all, landlords don't determine market rent. So if you think that your landlord is increasing your rent above what current market rent is, there are things you can do about that. You can take your landlord to the tenancy tribunal, because landlords literally can't charge above market rent. But what the inflation and all that sort of stuff is doing is that it's forcing landlords to look at increasing the rent, whereas before they might have just sort of let it slide for a good tenant.
Because they've
got no choice.
A lot of landlords, particularly those who've had houses for a long time, are actually under market, right, with their rents.
Yeah, a lot of them are, and most landlords in New Zealand are mum and dad investors, so if they get a good tenant, they look after them. They're scared to increase the rent, but at the moment with the tax changes in particular, they're left with very little choice. Someone with a mortgage of $500,000, they're faced with a 50% increase in costs just on interest rates over the last year. So it's massive, and it's got to come from somewhere. And when market rents have increased, that's one way that landlords can help cover those costs.
And one of the solutions that people often talk about is a control on rents, or a rent cap.
Yeah.
Which has been done overseas and has basically been shown to be
epic failure.
Yeah.
And I mean, like we've tested that theory here during COVID. So during the 6-month rent freeze in COVID, what was it? I've written the figures down. At the start of the rent freeze, rents were $470 a week on average. At the end of the 6-month rent freeze, that actually dropped by $20 to $450. But within 2 months of that rent freeze being lifted, average rent increased to $500 per week, which is like an 11% increase within 2 months.
So it only temporarily holds it down.
It kicks the can further down the road. It doesn't solve the problem.
So if you're a tenant watching this morning, you're probably going to be a little nervous, I would imagine, worried about, your landlord's costs are going up, and that means your costs are probably going to go up too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, what we need in order to help fix this rent crisis is more rental properties, and to be blunt, private landlords provide better rental properties than the government at a cheaper cost than for the taxpayer, so it costs the taxpayers less. We do a better job of it, and yet the government seems to be making things harder. So it doesn't make any sense, If they wanted to make it harder on landlords, they should have been prepared to increase the number of rental properties that they provided, but clearly it's a difficult thing.
Yes, easier said than done, I would think.
Absolutely.
Debbie, thank you so much for coming in. Great to see you as always.
Thank you.
That is Property Apprentice owner and financial advisor Debbie Roberts with us this morning. Thanks to AM's partners, Property Apprentice. It has just gone 10 away from 9.